want to talk a little bit about, I want to frame this, and obviously Tethered is all about that intersection of grief and loss and faith and doubt. And so I want to approach this conversation kind of from that context. And I know that as you are, I know through reading your books and watching you, that you have, since that transition 9 years ago, you've really made deliberate choices to live in proximity to pain and suffering. Do you feel like that is a choice that sort of you continue to make to move toward it? Or is this now something that you're living, you're postured in such a way that, I don't know, that pain and suffering feels welcome to come to you? Do you know what I'm saying there? Like, is this still something that you pursue, or is it just more a way of living now that it, you've got more space for it?
I love that question, Adriel. I think it's both. I think there's still this thing within me, and I think it's just kind of within us, within humanity, that we aren't prone to choosing pain. We aren't prone to choosing to walk. I look at my life before. There's kind of this line in the sand, and I see my life before, and I see my life from 9 years until now. And what I know is that, and maybe in many ways, adoption was the thing that kind of helped me turn this corner. But I look back and I realized that I was very used to making as wide a berth around pain as possible. You just detour as widely around it as you can.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So to come into a place, just a place in life where there's just so much pain and heartbreak and suffering and sadness and loneliness, all of these things, there's the element of, we have no illusions now. We understand, we much more clearly understand the suffering of our neighbors and the people around us. And so it doesn't maybe surprise us enough, but man, there are still times where it has to be a choice, situations, or even just phone calls, or even, certain knocks on the door where you just know it's going to be hard, and it's going to be taxing, and it's going to maybe be frustrating. And, there's that choice there of just opening that door. And so that's something that for me, it gets a little easier. It gets a little more, I don't want to say comfortable, but, like I said, it's not going to take me by surprise as much anymore, but it's still not completely just within me. There's just still that element of like, okay, this is what I'm going to choose right now, because this is now. This is the moment that I'm in. And if I can't believe that God is not just wildly alive on the other side of that door, or on the other end of that phone call, or whatever the situation may be, if God isn't there in that, and in that kind of messy stuff, then where would God be? And so understanding that, so often for me, saying yes to that, and I don't always, but saying yes to that and inviting that tension into my moment, into my day, into my life, just, it shows to me, it's a mirror, and it shows to me the face and the heart of God over and over and over.
It sounds a little bit, just listening to you now, it sounds a little bit like what you're describing is like a muscle memory. Like there's still work to engage the muscle, and yet there's a memory there to know what it's like to respond, to know what it's like to say yes to God on the other side of the door knock, because that really is what you're doing, isn't it? Opening the door to Jesus.
Yeah.
Shannan, have you experienced just in this life transition, and I know your husband works as a chaplain in the correctional facility, you're working in the soup kitchen, you're doing a lot of work in the community in different ways. And I wonder, has that for you, has that brought up your own pain, your own grief in that process as you're in proximity to this and bearing one another's burdens? Have you experienced that, or do you feel that that's you've differentiated that, and that's sort of, this is theirs, this is mine? How does that work for you?
Yeah. I think in some ways I've become much more comfortable with my own hard feelings. And again, my kids have helped me my kids have contributed to that within me as well.
Yeah.
And, just, and this isn't necessarily what we're here to talk about right now, but I just will say, I think kids with an adoption story carry a unique kind of pain. Yeah. And it looks differently for different kids. And it, you know, everybody's stories are different. And I don't want to paint with too broad a brush there, but I have been kind of in the close seats on that one. And then continuing to watch the lives of the people around me, it has maybe brought pain and hard feelings closer to my surface. So I can kind of have this very, you know, for one thing, I'll say, I don't have a lot of traumatic events in my life and in my past. You know, I'm grateful that I had just a pretty easy, happy childhood and life, you know. So I don't have the things that other people might be dealing with, but I tend to be kind of this, you know, kind of glass half full, just take charge and handle things and power through and charge through. My life now has taught me to see beauty in weakness rather than always in strength, to not just power through hard moments and pain and grief, but to be willing and to learn. And I still don't feel like I'm very good at this, but I'm always learning what it's like to sit in sorrow with other people, and even just in my own, you know, my own sorrows, because I think everybody, you know, we all have them. I've learned what it means to be lonely in ways that I didn't know before, and to understand how that is even a strength of its own, you know. So just, I think of a friend of mine who said a few years ago, it was kind of like right in the midst of us really kind of finding our feet here in the neighborhood. And she was reading my writing, and she said, she was a newer friend, but she was like, you know, we met for coffee or something. She said, I got to ask, are you okay? Like, your writing is getting like pretty dark. She said, are you still feeling sad? And I just thought, I mean, what kind of question is that? Of course I'm feeling sad. Like I feel, and I told her, I feel sad every single day here. And that's not something that I used to ever experience, because remember, I was still like detouring around the hard things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So of course I feel sadness every day here, but I also feel joy, and I feel, you know, I feel peace, and I feel, you know, we laugh a lot. You know, it's everything. Yeah. Like this to me is like, this is what the abundant life is. The abundant life that I always imagined as a kid was like just all the good things, all the bright, shiny things. Yeah. You know, that's not abundance, because that's not all of it. So here we get to taste the hard stuff, and we get to taste the really sweet stuff, and it's all kind of mashed together. And so every day we've got moments that are sad and frustrating, and every day we've got bright spots of joy and peace. And that to me is the kingdom of God, you know, coming right now down to where we are.
Yeah. And so with that, well, I love what you're saying about the abundant life, and makes me think of, you know, Jesus came to give life and life to the full. And I, you know, I feel similar to you. When I've thought of that in times past, I've thought, well, a full life means happy and joyful, and, you know, like all of the,
only, right?
Yeah. But actually full means fullness, and it means the whole spectrum,
all
and
of
it means the range of our humanity, which is such a gift to us. And, you know, I think for me and for many others, we tend to view our humanity as a burden, but it's actually, it's a gift to us that keeps us tethered to God, because it helps us to recognize our need for him.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. So how, like, talking about our bodies and, you know, your own pain, and thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your children as well. I think it's not a small thing to have a story that includes adoption. And I think we can romanticize it a little bit. So it's good to hear some of the, how that impacts the grief and even your proximity to pain, that it's not just outside the walls of your house, but it's inside your house as well. And how have you used your actual body to help you process your own pain and grief through the years? I know you love to cook. And so there's that. How do you use your actual hands and feet and body to work out some of your pain?
Several years ago, and this would have been right before I wrote The Ministry of Ordinary Places, I began a daily practice in my life that I had no idea was a daily practice. I'm not a big scheduled routine person, so I don't often set out to I'm going to do this every day. But I accidentally fell into the habit of walking my kids to school every day. And it's the most ordinary thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And to me, it was a practical decision. It was something that I was honestly kind of embarrassed that it took me so long to come to that conclusion. But I had no grand plan. I didn't think of it in any way as spiritual. I didn't even necessarily, it was just a choice that we made. But I was blown away by how that tangible physical activity of walking a distance that's not that far and doing it just consistently every day, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm telling you, it was the most profound thing that happened to me that year. And I continue to see the ripple effects of that. And so, there's something to this idea of physically moving our bodies. And that's the first part. The second part was connecting with the natural world and creation. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not walking necessarily for exercise. I'm just doing the thing.